With that, I call this meeting to order at 10:33. Would like to call on Mr. Jim Studman, our Chancellor, to establish quorum. He is also the clerk, and so that is also his role.
Well, I'm pleased to report that we have a quorum and a half, or a little bit more than that, so we're in good shape to have our meeting.
Excellent. I'm pleased to hear this. Let me share with you just a couple of things as we begin.
Would you close these things behind me?
I'm going to mute you. All right. So just as a reminder, we're on Zoom, the oddities of this. A reminder that we invite you to remain muted. This isn't because we want to squelch your voices or don't want to hear from you. By now, most of us have experience with Zoom, and we know that the more people who are not muted, the worse the background noise is and can be quite reverberating and horrible. So we invite you to remain muted. That said, there is a hand raise function in Zoom, and we invite you to do that. We also invite you to sort of put in the chat if you have a question. The hand raise function is under reactions. We have several people monitoring, so they will let the person who's speaking know, and we will do our best at the next juncture to answer your question or to make your motion. Voting will take place on Zooming polls. So if you've not experienced this, on your screen when we take a vote, it will pop up and you will have the option of choosing yes or no, as that's kind of how all of our motions today will roll. If there are two people who are in your household and you wish to vote in different ways, please write down this phone number. One of you will vote using the poll and the other person will express their yes or no to this text to this number so that we will have an accurate vote. And just a reminder, we are recording. I need to let you know about the voter requirements per cathedral bylaws that were adopted in 2002. You will see them listed here. Everyone is, of course, welcome to be in the meeting, but these are the parameters for actually casting a vote. With that, as the annual meeting packet that you were sent via e-news indicated, the first thing we actually need to do is hold a motion to have this meeting digitally. This is the wording of the motion. So if we have someone who's willing to make that motion, if you could do a hand raise or wave it around. Kathleen, I'm going to need your help to see people. Glenn Chichester raised his hand. So Glenn Chichester is so moved. Is there a second?
Jim Stedman has his hand raised.
All right, perfect. Now would be the moment. Raise your hand, please, if there's any discussion that would like to happen about that. All right, seeing none.
Robert has his hand up, but I'm not. Okay, no, he's saying no. That was from before. I will lower your hand.
Okay, then I'm going to stop the screen share and we will do our first poll here. So please proceed with the poll as it is in front of you. All right, we will end the poll. Everyone, here's the results. There you go. We will hold this meeting digitally. All right. The second item of business that I would like to present to you is our nominees for chapter. One second, and I will screen share with you. First, I'd like to begin with a thank you. I'd like to thank Sarah Whitney and John Guerrero, who both go off this term for their good work on the chapter. Mr. Lee Barker and Mr. John Guerrero, who's running for re-election. Lee's running for election. They're both running for 3-year terms. Their bios were in the packet you were sent. I'd also like to express my gratitude to Heidi Personia, who spent a lot of time on the dean search and all those sorts of things, and no longer feels called to serve on chapter. She's still an active member of the cathedral. We're so grateful for that. But Dr. Brian Ripley is running to fill her 1-year term. So these are the nominees as presented. Kara, you raised your hand. Let us call on you. would you like to unmute yourself?
I would like to make a motion to close our nominations with these three and unanimously vote on the slate.
Is there a second for that? Okay, I see Pete McLaughlin second. All right, the other hand raises are those questions. Now is the time for any comments or objections to that. Glenn, do you want to unmute and raise your question?
No, I was actually seconding the
Oh.
motion.
Very good. Any questions or objections? Okay, then I'm gonna stop my screen share and now comes your second poll. God. Okay, stop sharing that poll. Wait, I think that might be the wrong one.
Melinda, if you can't find the other one, I would take this as a motion in the same way it was offered, which is a motion that nominations be closed and a unanimous ballot be cast.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to give everyone their full vote on this one. It seems that they have, so. Dang it, I haven't practiced this. So disappointing. Anyway, will you just accept that one, Jem? Does everyone?
Yes, yes.
Great. Share the results. It looks good. All right. Thank you so much for that. With that, our voting comes to a halt for a minute or two, and I'd just like to say a few things as we begin kind of the sharing portion of it. First, I would like to thank everyone for joining this first ever digital meeting, and I want to begin with gratitude. It's not been the year anyone expected. I'm grateful for your patience, for your continued financial support, your support programs, your kind words to members of staff as we've tried to navigate these uncharted waters. We've erred on the side of caution, hoping to do our part to keep not only Cathedral folks safe, but our city safe. This impacted all our decisions, from whether we gather in person to whether we do the Eucharist or not. And as we've learned more, we've tried to adapt. So we had outdoor worship services in autumn, and now we're doing monthly Eucharist. We hope to have outdoor worship again as soon as it warms, because we know that with masks and distancing, that's relatively safe. I also want to say a word of incredible gratitude to the staff who have learned a new array of skills, who've had to adapt to new ways of communicating and new meeting structures. On top of that, a new dean. It's a lot. I'm also unendingly grateful for their creative ideas, their counsel, their flexibility, and their willingness to offer differing perspectives. Not least, I'm grateful to the chapter for their counsel and support as we try on new ideas and begin to craft a vision beyond COVID. In all of this, the diocese has helped provide support and guidance, for which I am also grateful. And with that, I think that he's probably joined us by now. I would like to turn over the microphone to Bishop Sean, who would like to offer his greetings.
Thank you, Dean Hall. Good to be with all of you this morning for this annual meeting. Just want to say or express my gratitude to the cathedral as well for all that you continue to do as a cathedral across our partnership. I'm particularly thankful for the contributions you've made partnership wide. Your dean and canon musician have worked wonders for us in terms of contributing to worship across our partnership with congregations who just don't have the ability to meet digitally, and I'm grateful for their contributions and therefore for all of yours, for the ways in which we continue to impact the city of Erie, and for your willingness to continue to expand your thinking about what it means to be a cathedral in this city, what it might mean to be the church in this city that organizes people for justice and transformation. I'm excited and couldn't have a better partner than I do in the cathedral and in your dean. And for that, I am truly thankful and grateful. Also, just want to say a word of thanks to the cathedral for continuing to be a place of hospitality for the whole diocese, even in this time of COVID, and to all the staff of the cathedral, with a particular shout out to Terry Bishop, your sexton, who is always here in every kind of weather and just keeps the place looking great and always lends a helping hand. He and his helper Chris, they're fantastic. So Terry, thank you. I just wanted to say thanks for being here and for keeping us in line and for keeping these buildings looking so wonderful and safe for all of us. Brothers and sisters, siblings, these are extraordinary times that we're living in. And today, you may not have remembered, but those of you who remember the days before liturgical reform may know that this is Septuagesima Sunday. Remember when we used to do the Gesima Sundays? This is Septuagesima. This means that it's the Sunday closest to the 70th day before Easter, which means if you want, you can start your Lenten observance today. And if you do that, you can feast on Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays between now and Easter. So you want your chocolate Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, start Lent now. See, we took the cool things out when we did our liturgical reform. But the one thing that made me think about Septuagesima Sunday, other than I just like to say Septuagesima, is that Easter is on the way. Easter's around the corner. That great feast day of the church where we celebrate resurrection. And in the midst of times of darkness and difficulty, the power of the resurrection is always around the corner. And right now, it's 70 days away. So as we celebrate this day of resurrection in this annual meeting, I bring you greetings from the whole diocese and the partnership, and my gratitude for you and for your dean. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Bishop Sean. We're glad and delighted that you made the opportunity to join us today. And thanks for your remarks, as always. They are encouraging. Although I have to say the thought of Easter sent panic into my deepest places, but all right. I'd now like to turn the mic over to Ed Palatella, our senior warden. I would just like to say a word of gratitude for Ed and for all the help that he has been through all of these things and his support. And it would be difficult to do without him.
Thank you, Melinda. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see everyone in this fashion. Thank you, Bishop, for being here, and Melinda for your kind comments. I just want to make sure everyone on the chapter is recognized, and welcome to our new members, certainly. But we have our junior warden, Christy Layton, Jim Stedman, our chancellor, Claudine Thiem, our treasurer, and then John Guerrero, Jen Golden, and Emily Cox. So thank you very much, everyone on chapter, and we look forward to working with the new members. And thank you, certainly, Bishop, for all your support. And certainly, as Melinda said, thank you for the staff. They've been wonderful. Sharon, Niami, Terry, the two Kathleen's. We have Kathleen 1 and Kathleen 2 now. And certainly Dorothy Konya for all her work. And also for the assistance of the St. Mark's group that Melinda will be talking about as well. So the chapter this year was certainly with Melinda's leadership. This has been a year of addressing the immediate crisis, but perhaps in no other year in the cathedral's recent history has so much time also been spent on preparing for the future. So Melinda, as she's going to talk to you in a bit about, has led the effort based on our core mission of worship, engage, and belong. And once again, these were ideas, initiatives, plans that you brought to us in 2019. It's hard to believe that was 2019 when we selected a new dean with all the focus groups. So those are the ideas you brought to us, and we worked on those this year. We had a retreat last February. Everyone on chapter remember that retreat before all this? It seems like it was about 10 years ago now. But where we worked on Melinda's vision and we adopted it, and that's where we are now, and we're continuing with it. So what you brought to us during the search for Melinda is what we're continuing to act on. So even without the pandemic, the cathedral needed to develop a plan for the future. And so did the Episcopal Church in Erie. As the bishop has reminded us of that, that's partly why we're partnering with Western New York. But we believe that our plans for the years ahead will spur innovation and growth, and most importantly, provide more opportunities for the congregation and anyone else in Erie to draw closer to Jesus Christ. So much of our vision for the cathedral with Melinda's leadership is tied to the future of the city. That relationship remains, and the chapter knows that with your help and patience, the cathedral and the city will be stronger once our current challenge is over. So thank you once again for all your support and patience this year. And Melinda is going to get into much more of what we're working on, but I can't thank everyone enough for what you've done and your support through this year. And then certainly if you have any questions or concerns, always I'm available by phone, email, whenever. We'll take questions during this event as well. So please let me know what's on your mind. And I know some of you certainly have let me know what you're thinking about, and I appreciate that. So thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Bishop. And next we're going to hear from Christy Layton, our junior warden, on what's been going on with the buildings this year. Thanks, Christy.
Hi, everybody. So obviously 2020 was a pretty eventful year, but there was a noticeable absence in our beautiful yet mostly empty cathedral. And it's very sad that we could not worship in person for the bulk of the year. However, it is comforting to know that regular updates and improvements were being made continuously to the buildings and the grounds. Some were quite large, maybe a bit unexpected, and others more minor. So the biggest project that 2020 saw for the cathedral were major repairs to our unique slate roof that we have, which is so beautiful yet very costly. So flashing was added to the north end of the roof, and addition snow guards were replaced on the upper roof and new guards on the lower roof. Careful attention needed to be paid to these so that the aesthetic of the cathedral would remain consistent and in keeping with the rest of the unique and beautiful exterior. And while this was a very expensive project, we saw it as a very necessary and long-term investment to our building. On the west side of the building, we had a condenser heating unit that needed to be replaced. Dean Melinda is going to share with you some photos that Terry, wonderful Terry, built a protective cover from the snow. And there's also a photo of a gap under the unit which prevents buildup of ice. So that nice shield will help keep that intact and working really well. Then inside the cathedral, wall repairs, carpet cleaning, and other painting projects were ongoing throughout different parts of the building. In addition, the food pantry had a very helpful exterior curtain installed to block the wind when food distribution was taking place. I would certainly like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to our amazing and dedicated sexton, Terry Bishop. His consistent work for our lovely cathedral deserves great appreciation, particularly during this uncertain and very challenging year. So we thank you, Terry, from the bottom of our hearts. We hope that 2021 brings us back together for worship in our beautiful, well-maintained cathedral. But until then, we just want everybody to stay safe and healthy. And again, thanks to Terry and Chris for all of your amazing hard work. If you have any questions for me, feel free to send them in the chat. If I can't answer them, Terry or possibly Ed could. And thank you everybody for your continued support. We really appreciate it and can't wait to be back together again as soon as possible.
Thank you, Ed and Christy. I'm now going to turn the mic over to Kathleen Moore, who's going to give a brief report on kind of all the outreach stuff we've managed to do, some of which, all of which most has made it into the e-news, but we are recognizing that the e-news has gotten to be a rather epic experience. And so we'd like to just let you know what all's been going on. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you, Melinda. First of all, it has been such a great honor to just dive into life both here at the Cathedral and at St. Mark's this year. I was so inspired by this community that by mid-July, when I got here, was already finding new ways to be a Christ-centered, connected community amidst a pandemic. And to find that much of that work was faced outward toward our friends and partners in the city of Erie. So my work has focused on learning as much about the city as I can, forming relationships, and convening the outreach and advocacy groups. So this is an innovative vision, and one that I will not take credit for. Plans for it were part of what attracted me to Erie in the first place, because these groups, the outreach and advocacy groups, are made up of members from both the Cathedral and St. Mark's. And so the idea is they work together to make decisions about the projects we engage in as Episcopalians in Erie. So the outreach team is focused on what we might think of as more traditional outreach ministry, so responding to needs with donations and volunteers. And our advocacy team works on learning about and responding to the needs of partners to assist in advocacy and activism about things like systemic racism, gun violence, environmental justice, poverty, and of course this year, getting out the vote. I do want to note that Deacon Dorothy serves as deacon for our advocacy team, and her presence there is so appreciated. Thank you to all of those who have helped maintain the weekly food pantry. I think that's something most of you are aware of, but it is absolutely remarkable. It has adapted as the pandemic has dragged on, as well as the Senior Boxes program and monthly Sunday suppers. You as Episcopalians in Erie have collected much needed items, and these are the things that have been in the newsletter for our school partners, for Piper Burley, for Harding, and now for Charter School of Excellence. You have collected items for City Haven, for our Neighbors Place Overflow Shelter, and for other ministries that serve unhomed people. And we, as team members, have maintained relationships with our community partners online through Zoom meetings, through phone conversations. We've kept connected to these partners. I know some of you are missing your former in-person service opportunities, including particularly those with students at our schools. And I just want to note, because I've heard so much of that is coming back. That will come back again when COVID is in our rearview mirror. They are excited to see you and to welcome you back. There is still so much work to do in terms of thinking strategically as to how we can serve best as partners in our community, and the will and energy exists here to do that, and I'm just so excited to see how it unfolds. I want to thank in particular the members of the outreach and advocacy teams and this entire Cathedral community for supporting this work of loving our neighbors. And I do know the newsletters are overwhelming, so please do, when you can, do look, because often both sort of ways that you can help and also reports on what we've been doing do show up there. And I see a hand from Amy.
Yeah, I read it in the chat, but can you share the members' names?
Oh my gosh, I don't have them in front of me. I feel terrible. I will in just a moment in the chat.
And do you take minutes at those meetings?
I do, and I can submit them maybe on the website or in the newsletter. Does that work?
I think we can put them on the website. That's fine.
Yeah.
The website is in the middle of an overhaul, so we will get that on the new website.
Yep. And I will share the members from both sides, from both parishes in just a moment.
Thanks, Kathleen, for that report. Are there any other questions or thoughts? All right, then. I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about some of the things that have been going on in COVID at the Cathedral that may be less seen, and kind of a picture of the general trajectory. What I'm going to ask, because I'm screen sharing, is that I can't see your hands raised. So my folks who are monitoring that will keep a record, and we will please note down your question, and we will get them at the end because I can't see. I've learned that I cannot take questions and run a Zoom all at the same time. So I beg your indulgence on that. 2020 at the Cathedral has been a weird year. I think we can all say that it's not what we expected, right? On any level. And yet, God is present in a lot of things, and we've found ways to engage in new ways. Kathleen just mentioned a lot of the new community events we've been doing. We've offered some various online things, from Compline to several formation programs. We took on that diocesan role Bishop Sean mentioned with worship in summer and autumn, really being able to take our place as a cathedral in that way. A lot of what we've done is unseen, reorganizing the office, fixing up digital data. Terry's been painting things furiously that we don't normally paint. A lot more staff cohesion. This picture is from an event we had, an Advent fire. We had families come and light the new Advent candle. You can see the Jeffries here lighting a small candle off what was a really great flame that Terry produced for us. It's good to have the fire department present. For those of you who've hung around TED Talks at all, I'm sure you're familiar with Simon Sinek's overly popular one. And while it might get annoying, there's reasons why it's popular. So this is kind of the way I want to focus my presentation today, is on what's called the golden circle. Don't feel like you have to memorize it. I'll come back to it every time I want to talk about it. But he posits this kind of way of talking about organizations, that the why is at the center. And Sinek's theory is that most people know what they do, they don't know why they do it, right? So I'm going to flip it around a little bit. I want to start with the why. I want to say that the Cathedral of St. Paul exists to change the city of Erie with God's love, that this is our why, that the church, unlike a lot of businesses, has a why. Jesus sort of said, go and proclaim and preach and baptize until I come back again. And so that's what we've done. And the cathedral exists from its very beginning until now to carry out that mission. And for us as Episcopalians, and in our particular living of it, that's about God's love. It's about sharing. This is the why from which all the rest drives. I think we all then could jump to the outer bit of the circle and talk about the what that we do. These are the pieces that if we said, what does the cathedral do? You can begin to name pretty easily what we do. These might look like familiar pictures to you. Christmas Eve, a night at Molly Brannigan's, serving some food. We began to talk about worship, belonging, and engaging as the three rooted centers of the cathedral's identity. Ed referenced the chapter retreat last year. This began to be the way we were talking about it. And then our delightful Corona friend arrived, and things sort of fell a little bit apart. But that worshiping, belonging, and engaging are kind of the center thrusts of who we are. And these pictures, I think, capture that adequately. I think that's what I gleaned from a bunch of conversations with people, coffees and children's football games and all sorts of things before COVID began. I would posit, though, and this is where I want to spend the bulk of my conversation today, that we don't often talk about how we do this. Businesses might talk more about how than the church does. It's that middle bit. It's like, how do we decide that we're going to share the love of God? We can name what we do. We can name why we're doing it, but sometimes we don't actually know how it happens. And I think it happens in two key ways. One is that we actually live into our identity. Paul talks in a famous passage about the body of Christ. You're an arm, you're an elbow. I guess that's an arm. You're an eye, you're an ear. And we think about that as individuals, but it's also true about churches. Every church is gifted differently. So why would we want to be someone we're not? We just want to be really who we are. Stick to our expression of the why, driven by love and how we express it. And that seems to me, having listened to you guys and having lived with you for a season, that, that means creating sacred spaces authentic to who we are. A Sunday morning with an incredibly gifted choir and chorister program. It means some midweek things. We were beginning to talk about evening taizé kinds of things that had a lot of interest for folks. It means fostering belonging among different demographics. We claim to be a place that welcomes all people, and this just in, every church claims that. So how are we really doing that? How are we really being that? And we want to connect people to serve in ways that align with their passion. That we just heard from Kathleen, all kinds of things the cathedral's doing. They're not aimed at everybody doing everything. We're trying to find the place where your passion aligns with something that can do good for the kingdom of God in this world, that can share love. And so then everyone is kind of connected in a way to one another and to God. To be a cathedral where people can walk in on a Sunday and participate just that way, or to be a parish where people drop down into different levels of belonging. This image is actually a network of how a tweet works on Twitter, but I actually think it fits how the cathedral thinks of networking and connecting people. These bigger circles, right? Some people want to be connected to a lot. Almost a parish feel, right? Where we know one another and we go to Molly Brangen's and we have a beer and a burger, or you have a soda pop, whatever. And we know, and we're all in. And then there are some people who just want to come for Christmas or Easter, and there's a place for them too. There's a place for everybody to belong in this chart, that we're a place that fosters that. And so we live into who we are, the arts and the music and the spirituality. The second piece of that is something we don't talk as much about in the church, but unfortunately is my jam, is about infrastructure, is about organizational structures. That how we facilitate what we can do and what we want to do and what we should do, we actually need staff to do. There's a huge piece of our budget, so we should talk about it. And we should talk about how what we need is here. That we've been doing a lot with St. Mark's. This picture is from an event. We had a trunk or treat event in St. Mark's parking lot because their parking lot is bigger than ours. We had a cap of 30 kids, so it was safe. And all the staff members sort of just pulled together. This is a great picture. I love it. That's Craig Dressler on the one side, the only gentleman in the picture. Sort of asking why he's in the picture because he chose not to dress up. I don't know who does that at a Halloween party. Then that's Niambi. And Carly Rowe in the middle, I'm the ninja, obviously. And that's Sharon dressed up as E.T., less obviously. And we were all there kind of doing our thing. And I love this picture because it makes me laugh, but it's also this moment where we realized that we could pull bigger things off by doing them together. Neither congregation had enough kids to warrant doing it by themselves. And we needed a bunch of different parishioners to come and park their cars to distribute candy. And Sharon was there generating a ton of interest at both churches for our Christmas pageant. And I was there meeting people at both churches. And Niambi was just helping out because she understands that that's part of what she does as a staff member here. And so in the city of Erie, it seems like that to do what we need to do, we have what we need. And in this kind of a model, it lets everyone pull together in a different way. It lets everyone kind of specialize. I don't know how much you know about a Master of Divinity degree, which is what those of us who are ordained priests in the Episcopal Church had to have. Number one, it's a dumb sounding degree. Okay, so whatever, I've not mastered God. Number two, it's a jack of all trades. You take 92 hours or more, and in my seminary, we took more than that, but we're not all gifted in the same way. Some of us are passionate about other things. And yes, we're professionals, so I can do whatever you want me to do, but it's better if we each specialize. And then we can actually do more together by sort of building these economies of scale. If you put me on developing Christian formation and thinking through vision and structure, I'm very good at those things. If you put Kathleen Ziegenheim at a bedside, she's way better than me at that thing. Yes, I can do it. It's a privilege to be at people's side when they're ill. But Kathleen Ziegenheim is wildly gifted in that. And Craig Dressler, he's extremely gifted in thinking through stewardship processes and how to create models of abundance in churches. And Carly Rowe, she's very good at communication structures, at making sure the e-news looks good and all of our Canva layouts are correct and rebuilding our current website. And who's better at choir and music and choristers and engaging the community arts than Sharon? And so this actually allows us, by everybody kind of doing a thing, to do more, to benefit from economies of scale, which we don't talk a lot about in the church, but maybe we should think about. So that what we build is the Episcopal Church in Erie in 2 iterations that don't compete. I don't know about you, but churches generally seem to be sort of declining. Financial models don't work as well as they once did, and we all need each other more. We're not in competition. That has a dollars and cents component to it too. And so I don't want you to think that we're spending more on staffing, because we're actually spending less and getting more, because that's what partnering can do for us. Niambi's our 3/4 time parish administrator. Carly is our part-time communications person. Lindsay Fogel is our part-time youth person until we can hire a full-time youth person when COVID is over. Our part-time associate priest is Kathleen. There's an asterisk there because that falls under the category of new ministries, and we were able to partner with the diocese for a grant. And for that, we're grateful. Thank you, Bishop Sean, and the Diocesan Council. And assistance in development, that's Craig Dressler. And so we're actually spending less and getting more, which seems to me to be a pretty good model for using our finances appropriately. I want to repeat and reiterate and maybe tattoo somewhere on me that this isn't a merger. And in fact, it fails if it's a merger, because we actually need each other to be super different. If you know St. Mark's and you know the cathedral, you know they're really different places. We're a downtown cathedral. We're a cathedral. We have a Sunday morning service that is rooted in the best of the Anglican tradition as is expressed in choirs and the Book of Common Prayer. And we're deeply rooted in the downtown part of the city with our food pantry and all the rest. St. Mark's is a more suburban style church with a totally different liturgy that appeals to a different demographic of people. They care about the city. They've partnered with the charter school. We make perfect partners because we're so different. And what I want to say is that if you come to the cathedral on a Sunday morning, you will not experience that anything of this is involved. You won't experience that anything has changed. Because honestly, Sunday morning is the one place none of this holds traction. Now, if you want to take one step deeper into the life of the cathedral, and you realize that instead of offering one adult formation, we can offer 3. Or instead of just having like some youth stuff for children, we actually can offer multiple things for children. And when you discover that, well, we used to just partner with these couple of schools, but now we partner with these, and now we have this relationship with the Bluecoats, and now we have this relationship with Selena King, and you begin to realize that all of those things are built out as a product of our relationship with the people of St. Mark's. Sunday mornings, they're the thing that won't change. So I just want to be transparent that I doubt this is forever. That this is all in COVID, right? People are doing the thing that makes sense now. Our meeting structure makes sense now. And after COVID, I hope that maybe what people are able to do changes, that we have some extra capacity for some more creative things. But right now, while we're all trying to put together hymn videos every week or whatever it is, this is what it is. For now, we expand our capacity. We offer more things. We get the internal working. It matters that our constant contact list is correct. It was a disaster. We discovered that in November. We got it all fixed because actually that was one of the weird gifts of COVID, to have time to do that. We're getting stuff reorganized. We're getting the columbarium reorganized. We know where everything is now. And it allows us to hit the ground running post-COVID, that we're making plans. We've all worked on our goals and we know where we're headed and we're trying to figure out what it is we want to do. That happens in consultation with you. I've been in touch with quite a few of you. We've had some online focus groups. I had coffee with a bunch of people before that. I've made phone calls. We want to hear what it is that you're looking for. And we think this is the way to, having heard you, we bring it about. I don't see this as some vision coming from on high. I'm presenting it to you because it's my job to carry it out. But I'm gathering it from you, from the cups of coffee we shared, from the breakfast we had, from the back when I could have dinner at your house, right? That I think this is the logical and creative solution for the moment. But I also think that we live in an era of experiment. The whole economy is really changing, isn't it? But I would say that there's no such thing as a failed experiment. There are only experiments with There's no such thing as a failed experiment. There are only experiments with unexpected outcomes, like when for no reason your screen share just stops as it did just then. Took Buckminster Fuller a long time to invent what he invented. Businesses these days experiment all the time. We're trying to figure out what works here and use our resources responsibly and do it in a way that builds the kingdom of God and shares God's love within our walls and within our city. So as always, I want to hear from you about these things. I've heard from some of you about these things, quite a few of you. So I guess if there are questions right now, I will be delighted to hear those if you want to do the hand raise thingy. That was the technical term, in case you were wondering, thingy. Or if you just want to let me know what's on your on your mind. You know, the door is figuratively always open. I'm at the cathedral not a whole lot. We've orchestrated it so the staff is here on different days, but there's my email in the chat. So for some of you, it's a lot to absorb. For some of you, you're plugged into it, and so you've had the experience of these things already. So.
Mark and Paula have a question.
All right, great. Do you want to unmute and ask your question, or would you like to type it into the chat? I'm trying to find you. I'm frantically searching through my 5 screens.
Yeah, I had been concerned about everyone's lack of communion. And since I'm married to a priest, I haven't been as deprived. And so I've been really appreciative of your being working out a way to share communion with everyone. And I really appreciated that. Thank you very much. That's a lot of extra effort and working things out, but I'm really glad that you did that.
Well, we're committed to doing it once a month. We know it took us a while to get there, but as mentioned before, we were being as cautious as we could. And at first we didn't know. It seemed like touching was a real way to transmit. And so it just seemed better left undone. But we now know that's not exactly true. And so they've made a variety of nice products now that don't look like coffee creamers, but something quite nicer. So we're glad to have that. Thank you, Paula, for sharing that.
Yeah, I was very moved that you were able to do that.
We will be doing it again Lent 1. And so when you come to pick up ashes, we will also be able to give you pre-consecrated in advance, or you can come after the service, whichever suits you.
There's a question in chat from Amy. Is there any way other than making an appointment to open the cathedral to visitors?
At this time, there is not.
Could you elaborate on that?
We feel it's not safe to have a bunch of people coming in and out. It would cost us a lot more in cleaning to do the building. We clean the building at the regular rate. We make sure we clean it after the food pantry at this point. And so, you know, our staff is here on a rotating basis to make sure no one is quite in the same place. And until vaccines are around and until we feel like people can gather, that we feel like is our best policy. I think Pete, I think I see your hand.
Yeah, it's actually for me.
Right, Allie.
I heard that, I know you mentioned that you're revamping the website, or that Carly is. Is there going to be a link on there for the lay ministry? Because the Google Doc thing is driving me nuts.
Oh, yeah, we can do that.
That'd be fantastic.
That's me. I coordinate the readers, and it seemed to be the easiest way to do it in COVID. So we can put that out and get that up.
Thank you.
It's guaranteed to happen because I've written it down. The new website should be ready mid to end of February. We're looking at 6 weeks. I know that it's being built now. If you want a preview of what it looks like, we're using the same WordPress prefab as St. Mark's in Seattle. That's a cathedral there. To that end, also, you will have noticed that our logo, we've decided to change it to purple instead of red, because purple is the color of cathedrals and it really makes for a much better color palette. That's a beautiful mug, Allie. You're actually in my screen. Any other comments? Wait, let me check the chat here. Okay. All right, then. With that, I'm actually going to transfer the meeting over to Claudine, who will be sharing her screen and letting us know about the budget. Thanks for all your questions. Please, my email is available. Let me know if you have other thoughts.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, so this looks similar to over the, I think I'm on year 7 of doing these or something like that. They sort of get better each time. So, you know, they used to be just this, and now we have pretty pictures, and I took some suggestions from last year with even coloring right now. So the first thing we're going to look at is the top of the thing, which is income. The pie graph represents the actual 2020 income. And sort of I have put the majority in red. And that majority of income is still from our endowment draw. By far, that's 57% of our income. And then next in the purple would be the pledges received. This red indicates a 5% endowment draw, which, you know, we've said over the years should be closer to 3. But I'll talk more about the endowment at the end. But those are the significant pieces being supplemented thirdly by the house rental that we get from our property there. Pledges were under budget for 2020. That tends to come with the types of transitions that we've been doing. So it's not very surprising, but you can see, you know, about that difference right here in the actual. You're going to notice that I've bolded that we had to do an additional draw of $16,000 from our property and buildings endowment, and this went towards the slate roof repair. The property and buildings expense, you can see here, was higher than budgeted and included that slate roof. The budget for 21 is actually where the heating is going to occur on that heater that Christy talked about. So that's not even represented here. So what you're seeing is, because special giving is things that we do not budget, it is special giving to food pantry, for flowers, for outreach dinners, for schools. So with those are just the special giving that happens throughout the year. So even with the deficit in pledges, so this number here looks like it's more, but again, the 16 was actually an extra draw. So before I move on to expenses, any questions on the income side? Again, I guess if I'm sharing, I can't see anything, so someone will have to interrupt me. Okay, down in these two columns of expenses, with a lot of the transitions and of course the diocesan grant for working with Kathleen Moore and all of the transition, our salary and benefit number for actual was way below budget. Property and buildings, of course, was up. So it kind of turned out that we had a significantly less expenses, but honestly, that just probably came naturally from the things that we weren't able to do in COVID, in addition to the restructuring of staff. So what that meant is that it looks like we're ahead by almost $8,000 here when we had budgeted a deficit of almost $60,000. It's not quite true just because I'm required to report this extra endowment income that we drew above the budget. So I made a note at the bottom here that because of that additional draw, if you didn't consider that, basically our budget deficit went from 58,297 to a deficit of just over 8,000, which is a gift, one of those side gifts that sort of comes out of all of this, is that to have a year where this is the deficit, we haven't even come close to that in years past. It's always been more. The graph here will show you definitely salaries and benefits are our majority, and then property and buildings. And then the third large chunk is our diocesan assessment, which we have every year there. So those are the three major categories of expenses compared to the income. Any questions on the expenses or this deficit number or my note? Okay, the last piece I want to talk about is this third row. This was actually the budget that we've been working on for 21. And amazingly enough, the income looks like it's almost exactly the same budget as here. And the expense looks like it's almost the same budget as here. But this actually is quite different. Everything that Melinda talked about, in addition to what Christy talked about with the heater, is all reflected in here, but somehow it came out almost, almost exact to our 2020 budget. But you can see some big differences, like salary and benefits, what Melinda was talking about, and again with the grant from the diocese, is that went salaries and benefits budget of 402,000 went significantly down for this year. And we did have to raise our budget on property and buildings, knowing that that heating unit needed to be replaced. And then we're also committed, we actually raised this, our capital projects budget, $10,000 in trying to finally get where we are putting away money for the future capital projects that is carried over from year to year and kind of saving for them in advance. The other thing you'll see significant increase here. We've added quite a bit to outreach, and something that's different if you ever compare annual reports, because I know you go home and pull last year's and look number for number, is this, I've actually split up the diocesan assessment and the outreach number, which was suggested to me last year, just to indicate, because we considered diocesan assessment sort of part of our outreach, but this kind of gives you the breakdown of what is given to the diocese for assessment versus what we're budgeting for that outreach component. And we are committed to seeing this steadily increase as we move outward and with some of our advocacy and community engagement that is part of the mission that we're trying to develop. And so basically it turns out the same, and we're still looking at this deficit. The other thing that we tried to be responsible with, you will see that we lowered the budget on pledges based on the pledges that came in. We did not feel that we could anticipate as high as we had done in 2020. So, that is, offset by trying to reduce expenses, but you will see a little bit of increase in the endowment. Which takes me down to these numbers, which is also a new format for my report this year. Not all of our endowment is part of that 5% draw that we take. So I have split it up for you. I've given you the total amounts at the end of 19 and at the end of 20. And you can see, even with our extra draws and our 5% draw, it was a good year for the endowment in the stock market and the different places that it's invested. The budgeted accounts are the totals for which the draw is taken. And then these have special, these non-budget endowment accounts have special regulations and special things that they're spent on. So they are not part of the budget. And again, I look at this situation, and every year we seem to talk about wanting to lower that draw, but we've managed to navigate, at least since I've been treasurer, without losing and actually gaining in our endowment value, which is another gift that, hopefully we can use responsibly and still work towards our goal of not being as dependent on it. If you have any questions, I have breakdowns of everything that's included in these categories, but I'm hoping that the reports have continued to sort of improve a little bit and given you a clearer picture and included some visuals for those that don't like to get in the weeds of the numbers. So any questions at all, I'm happy to take them. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
Not, excuse me, I'm not seeing any hand raises at the moment. All right. Well, I just want to express my gratitude to Claudine, who does spend a lot of time making sure the numbers match and works on our budget and checks in, which also brings me to my second big thank you, which is to Sandy, our bookkeeper, who, like Terry in COVID, were in the building on a regular basis all the time, doing what needed to be done. Sandy does such a wonderful job keeping all of it right. It means that it's no headache for any of us, that it's all just done well and smoothly, and for that she has my endless gratitude. My gratitude also to those of you who have made pledges. We are grateful. It's through you that the life of this place is sustained, and without you believing in us enough to give us of your finances, we couldn't do what we do. We couldn't be what we are in the city, and so we are really grateful. And I'm very grateful to those of you who have picked up and used Realm. We think it's going to be great. We're just trying to get everybody on board now before we build it out further. This summer, we looked at talking about, making the calendar better and using it as a tool to communicate with each other's, maybe even among readers, but we'll never let that not be on the website again. I've noted it. So we appreciate that. We're going to be working with Craig Dressler this year to sort of talk about what it looks like to think about inculcating long-term giving, planned giving, these kinds of things to ensure that the stability of our future is solid. The draw we take on our endowment, it matters. It looks like a lot of money, but it goes down more quickly than we all realize. And the stock market is good today, but hey, guess what could happen tomorrow? I don't even want to talk about it. If you have GameStop, you should probably think about that too. But anyway, so we want to be good stewards of that. And part of that means building up our endowment, not always drawing on it. So look for that to come in the future.
I just say one more thing, Melinda. Sandy had indicated to me, I know in the past, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is sort of how I understood her message to me, was that in the past they had individually mailed your giving reports at the end of the year, and that information is now available in Realm all the time, where you stand, and that sort of report is there, and you can see your year-end one there. If you would like it emailed or mailed to you, all you need to do is email either her or I think she said Niambi that you had exported a file that you guys would be able to mail or email those separately to anyone that didn't happen to be on Realm or had trouble getting to that report. But that's all.
Thanks, Claudine. If there's nothing further, no questions. Well, I would just like to thank you for, coming to this online meeting today. As ever, even in difficult times, we're trying to spread hope and shine light and speak love to one another and to our city. I admit that I'm still trying to figure out all that COVID and this kind of extended liminal period is teaching me, but without a doubt, I'm learning anew that in all things, God is with us, that the Holy One is present. And although not always particularly readily apparent, God is at work in all of it, doing new things, present in our lives and in our church and in our city, drawing people together in new ways, creating leverage points for justice, and guiding us to new vision. And for those reasons, I am excited about the future. From the joy of actually being present in a room with you, which for me was a very short amount of time with all of you. Very excited about the opportunity to just have a cup of coffee with you, to actually seeing what will develop in this journey as we become the Episcopal Church in Erie, as we figure out how to be God's people here more and more, and what it means post-COVID, because the world has changed. Our city has changed. The needs are different. We are different. And yet God is the same, present with us, loving us through it. I am always available by email. I'm happy to talk with you on the phone. I want to be in touch with you and I'm trying my best, but please know that I welcome you being in touch with me. And I think that I speak for our staff when they say that also. We care about you, we want to be there for you. We're doing our best to provide meaningful worship, meaningful Christian formation, and when possible, meaningful opportunities together this summer. As we go from this place then, I invite Bishop Sean to offer our final blessing.
Lord be with you. The blessing of God Almighty, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit be upon you and remain with you now and forever. Amen.
It's 11:33. This meeting is adjourned. We started at 10:33. I just want to say that was an amazing accuracy. Thank you all for being with us. I'm going to close the meeting. Blessings to you all, and I hope to see you in worship next week.